negotiate with the people they think he is the only enemy. And great Satan is out there. He never died. And Zionism is still there. They're gonna die. And tremendous amount of billions of dollars this regime has spent to have a school, especially school around the world, with $125 million each for a yearly financial support to just keep this thing going. And of course, the left used the Islamists through the history to do the dirty job, and they are under the cover. The only time you see them, it's loud noise comes in. You say something, oh, no, it is this, it is that. But they're not giving up. The point is the same as Israel is trying to keep his security under control and save his identity and save people's life. I think it's President Trump pack and go to Israel and 3 months, and every hour the speaker says, hit the
ordering the Bin Laden raid, saving an auto industry
and run to the shelter. He might get a picture what is living in Israel really means. Not in the White House with all the security and everything else. It's just wanted it just to save his image. He wanted to save his midterm and a lot of life got wasted, and these guys that came in and they still think we are enemy and so forth and so on. And I don't think so. I'm 100% confident Israel is not going to back up. They still have them guards up. They still are in the defense. And I was hoping maybe
we'd also like to take a
it's a time to get rid of the killer regime in Iran.
Moment to recognize the original and
free support of these inmates. They could just move out and go to Lebanon and live up there. So, but it is what it is. You have to take Islam's. I'm sure Israel is ready for it. Iranians still there. They're not giving the hope. Nothing lasts, but this is temporary. Let's see what everybody gonna cash out. The Strait of Hormuz is blocking and so forth and so on. It brought millions of dollars. The oil companies brought millions of dollars to Iran because they were getting 2 million, 3 million. Sometimes they said they have to go through the things. Back to you, sir. It is what it is, and God has always been with Israel, and it will be. Allah is sitting in the end of the thing, and still it's the phony things. Let them they believe what they believe. But
thank you, Alan. So I use the term, but it may have escaped people in the tweet from the Ayatollah Khamenei, or what purports to be from the Ayatollah Khamenei. I just want to point out once again, underscore that when he talks about how they need not adhere to the terms of any agreement, he refers to the United States as the enemy. I just want to point that out, because after all this is said and done, to them, we will still be the enemy. And that ought not to be ignored by the American people. Marshall, followed by Amir.
So hopefully my reception doesn't go bad. I'm about to go to a place where there is spotty. So if I'm underwater, just tell me.
He's not
top line, this is what happens when you don't do things the right way. It's no longer a choice amongst the best choices you possibly have. It's a choice amongst the best of all of the worst options you could possibly find. So you're not choosing best options. You're choosing the best of every And that means that without U.S. support, that means without the Congress, that means without a clear idea of the American public, aside from gas prices, the American public don't support this. So our national interests are starting to diverge. When national interests start to diverge, you have to do something different. And if we had done this the right way, if we had garnered support, if we had gone to Congress, if we had gotten appropriations, maybe we don't end up with
Great Chicago Day.
this. But to be frank, I don't see anybody doing this. Trump wants it ended. The American our national interest in inventing this stuff doesn't support, frankly, continuing with Israel on this adventure any longer. What it supports is us diverging, going back to the homes because it was an option.
So please indulge me
I can't stress this enough. This throwing under the bus is what happens
for a moment because I'm going to take a little
military action
time to do something that I know my husband will not do today.
No other option but to
Newly
throw an
independent
element
United States,
to
there
preserve
will
your own interests. And as I said many times, when it comes down to the U.S. national interest,
no
the
kings
national
or
interest,
Ending a
the U.S.
war,
should always choose its own.
ordering the
Hey Howard, you're
Bin Laden raid, saving
His
an army.
mic is on.
I got it. We have to choose our own national interest over everybody else. Because it's not. And choosing our own national interest means coming home and licking our wounds and admitting we lost. It does not mean continuing at a clip of $1 billion a day, some military engagement that has no greater fences around it other than stop missiles and stop bombs, which we're really not stopping. Again, I can't say this enough. This is what happens when the executive arranges military action in the wrong way. You are left with no other option than to abandon your friends. And you have to choose. British Empire has no permanent friends, only permanent interests. The U.S. Empire has no permanent friends, only permanent interests. And that means we have to preserve our interests. And that's going to screw some people over. But again, this is what happens when you use military force in the wrong way. You are left with no other option. And I don't. That may be overly simplistic, but I don't see another way around it. Aside from Trump not wanting to do it, the U.S. doesn't support this. It's not just because of gas, because of Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, maybe if he'd come to us and he told us what was going on, maybe if he'd gone to the Congress and persuaded them to appropriate money, maybe if we had bothered to get the support of our allies aside from Israel, this would have turned out a whole lot different. But it hasn't, and it's not going to. We also have to calculate in, there have been war games about this for all of my lifetime, if not longer. And we always end up in a stalemate where we lose. The only time in a war game we have engaged against Iran that I know we've won, we had to account that 75% of their equipment just didn't work. Whatever it was, just didn't work. And all of those things put us in a place where we have to choose the best of all of the worst decisions humanly possible. And at least in the United States, the best of all the worst decisions humanly possible is to stop spending money, come home, do what we have to, support the allies in the way that we can, but we can't be forward deployed like this anymore. It's not getting us anything. It's not getting us anything at all. And so I don't know of another way around that. I don't like the memorandum of understanding. I think it makes us look weak. But you look weak when you start off weak, right? As everybody, or maybe not everybody, has heard the 5 Ps. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. We did not properly prepare. As a consequence, we cannot continue this in a way that would allow Israel to sustain their action and fight. Now, they're going to do it anyway because their national security interest says they have to. As I said, nations should at the core pursue their own national interests. That's their job, to protect their own countries and their own people. And again, if we had just done done this differently, maybe we get a different answer. But we set ourselves up for failure. I don't know a way around that. I'm sorry to be so pessimistic, but I don't know what
Sorry to be so pessimistic, guys.
getting any kind of victory out of it.
Victory.
So you
Also, I agree with Howard. I fear this is going to bring an uptick in anti-Semitism in the United States. It's just like an utterly worse way than we have now. It's going to be really, really hard for outwardly facing Jews who go to temple or wear religious ornaments or wear their kippahs. Like I got a friend who wears his kippah all over the place. I hate the idea that this man is going to face discrimination because he's a practicing Jew. That this seems like the exact kind of situation in which that kind of hatred is broadened even more than it already is. I agree with Howard there. I'm very pessimistic about the rest of the stuff.
So I want to challenge you a little bit, if I may.
Please, I'm always down to learn.
Well, I'm challenging you based on what I see, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me, as an inconsistency in your argumentation. Why do I say that? You talk about the interests of the United States has to prevail, and it's not in our interests to be engaged in a war with this regime in Iran. But you yourself have pointed out the numerous attacks against Americans, both citizens and military, by Iran over the years. Most recently, there was a terror plot uncovered here in New York City where a commander of an Iranian-backed Hezbollah militia orchestrated plots to attack a New York synagogue and other local Jewish community landmarks. And you are very well aware, you have pointed out the 1983 Beirut bombings, the 1996 Khobar Towers attacks, how Iranian-backed special groups directed fighters against the United States forces during the Iraq War, which was not their war. The Iranian military, as far back as 2020, before this conflict, directing ballistic missiles at a U.S. air base in Iraq. More than 100 U.S. troops suffered traumatic brain injuries from that. The 2023 Syrian drone attack, where the Iranians struck a U.S. coalition base in Syria. I'm not talking about the attacks during this conflict. The 2024 Tower 22 attack, where Hezbollah launched a drone strike at a U.S. logistics base in Jordan. 3 American soldiers were killed, 40 others wounded. There have been a number of assassination plots and cyber warfare directed against the United States. I'm not going to go through the full historic timeline of all this state-sponsored anti-American hostilities. Given this perspective, is it not in the U.S. interest to facilitate the demise of the regime in Iran? Is this all just about Israel in your mind?
No, not even a little bit. Israel is just an ancillary part. The reprisals were fine. Waiting is okay. But waiting doesn't take 6 months.
Waiting is okay.
It doesn't take the devotion of multiple fleets that we have. It doesn't take conflicts which the American public really doesn't know what the goals are. Right? I'm fine with reprisals. I'm fine with supporting allies. What I'm not fine with is a prolonged military conflict which the United States simply doesn't support, and in which the president tries to make political hay for the midterms or for other things using the conflict. The problem I have here is beyond bombing, what good does the military do there?
What do you want them to build roads and bridges for them? Maybe hospitals or sports
Well,
theaters?
now you're talking about tactics. My challenge to you was specifically about the question of it serving American interests, and you said that it doesn't serve our interests, and that's why I'm challenged. That's specifically what I.
I don't think that the prolonged nature of this any longer serves American interests because we're using the military tools in ways that are not to fight and win wars. They are to stave things off and to divert a sense of politics in the United States. And that's the wrong way and the wrong reason to use the military.
So says Marshall Rankin. I know everything!
Unless we're going to properly...
I'm a subject matter expert. I have worked in politics for years. I know exactly what to do, and that's why I am the Republican representative of the Hidalgo Republican County Republicans. Excuse me, everyone. I have to go do some Adderall and suck a dick. Pardon me. It's not, I'm not necessarily gay. I'm like somewhere between sort of LGBTQ and sort of like bi-curious. Hello?
We're serving the taxable aims, which are small ball stuff.
Small balls.
Again,
Marshall Rankin's got small balls.
in my mind, is fine. They deserved it.
They deserve it.
If you have to come back 6 months later and drop more bombs on renewed military capabilities, do so.
Oh, do it.
But this idea of just sitting in the middle of the Persian Gulf and not doing anything other than bombing doesn't.
What else should we be doing, Dr. Marshall?
I understand it. It certainly doesn't seem to get the population behind it, which is what you need.
It's not getting the population excited about never-ending war and never-ending expenses.
You define prolonged for me in your mind because different people might interpret it differently.
Prolonged for me in the way Trump was talking about this at the start was that it would be 6 weeks. We're long past 6 weeks. This is prolonged. If we're talking about...
So because of the way the president framed it, which was overly optimistic, now you feel that 3.5 months is prolonged. If he had said that it would take a year or 2 years, would you consider 3.5 months prolonged as well?
No, but I also think at that point he probably would have stated more interest. I can't tell you what the stated interest of these are. Okay, to get the nuclear weapons up. All right, fine. How am I going to get the nuclear
I
weapons?
understand that. I understand all of that, Marshall, and all those arguments, and I'm not challenging those arguments. I'm just asking you to define what prolonged is in your mind. And I guess you're saying that based on the president's assertions that this would be a 6-week-long war, 3.5 months in your mind is prolonged.
Yes, from what the executive said, absolutely. Now, if he had said something like, guys, this is going to take some time, it's going to be a couple of months, it's going to be a year or two, okay, fine. I get a little bit more sympathy. Because you've at least told us that it's going to take a while. But if you tell me it's going to be this hurry-up thing, and that we're not going to stick around, and that you don't want to engage in foreign wars that can get you into a quagmire that sits you there for 20 years, then I tend to take you seriously. And sitting around in the middle of the Persian Gulf without a clear idea of what we're doing is the recipe for prolonged military engagement.
Thank you, Marshall. We'll go to Scott.
Well, I was going to ask Marshall something, but I've asked her.
Sure, go ahead.
During his initial talking, he was saying, which I totally agree with it, as, the national interest should be in the first. And then, middle of his talk, he said, we always lost. How possibly these people making those decisions, and if the national interest top of an agenda, how come we come losing? If nationalists was in this situation, how come we lost? That's the whole thing. Is we're not winner. We not winner. We pulled out. Okay, the Strait of Hormuz, which wasn't closed. I've been told it was closed, but what actually wasn't closed. The ship was flowing by paying the amount to Iran, and they cashed out a lot. And then gas went up. Everything else is gonna go up. Gas gonna come down. Nothing gonna come down. We are the loser as an individual. I don't know what part we lost. I hope he explained to me because I'm confused.
So what I meant by that specifically was there was a national interest in punishing the Iranians, giving them a consequence for 47 years of killing of our civilians and Iranian civilians. As that reprisal, the military wars put together by Navy,
Marshall, you're in the Matrix, and nobody can appreciate your incredible intelligence.
You go to a strike and come home. The United States always lost in that. The keeping of it there just within the parameters of that war game. And so that serves our term next. One of a bunch of war games that say, heck, this doesn't end up well for the United States. In fact, we either end up in a stalemate, or more than likely, the plans say, we end up in some sort of a loss. Right? And
And now you are underwater, Marshall. You are underwater now, unfortunately. Scott?
Yeah, I thought it was my end, but it looked like it.
No. He said that might happen. We'll go to Scott, followed by Amir.
Hey guys, I'll keep my comments brief. I definitely think that we threw Israel under the bus, and I mean, in this sense, so I mean, you could say it's a good thing or a bad thing. We could debate that, but clearly Trump and the administration were all in with Israel. It was, we're Israel's greatest friend in the world. And then the rhetoric really shifted, right? I mean, over the past couple of days, with the Trump sort of taking up the rhetoric about it. I mean, baby, you don't have to kill like everybody in the apartment buildings, okay? I mean, you don't have to kill them all, okay? Like, there's some good people there. And Vance, you look at Vance's comments today. I mean, they're clearly like there's a shift here, and this is the transactional nature of Donald Trump, right? I mean, you can't depend on Trump in this regard. And I think, and just in a more philosophical, I was thinking today about Obama and how circumspect Obama was, and because of the whole, thing with the library today. And this is where presidential personalities are so significant, right? I mean, that took, the JOP or whatever, the Iranian agreement took a better part of a year. I was listening to some of the stuff about the behind the scenes with that. They were flying people in and out of it, experts coming in all the time. And this thing was meticulously hammered up. Trump saw a problem, he just reacts. There's an impulsive nature to this, which got us in really quickly, and now it's getting us out really quickly. So, I think that this is the nature of Donald Trump, right? I mean, people, this is what people voted for, right? We knew this about Trump. We knew that Trump's not a calculated, reflective thinker, that he's impulsive, and that's
Projection alert system has been activated. The projection alert system has been activated.
So, yes, I think that there's definitely been a kind of, Israel's definitely has to accommodate, I think, to see it coming, right? They didn't see this tonal shift. They didn't see this kind of, they were thick as thieves, right? It seemed Bibi and Trump. And so this is a sort of, I think, and again, whatever your politics of it, you might think this is a good thing. You might think it's better, but certainly, I think that there's been a shift that most people wouldn't have seen coming, whatever side of the politics you're on. So, thanks.
Thank you, Scott. We'll go to, no, here he is. He dropped out and he's back. Thank goodness. Amir, followed by Andrew.
Thanks, Gary. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm actually talking to you from an island in Mediterranean, Greek island. So if I lose you...
Oh, just rub it in my face. Just rub it in my face that you're on a Greek island in the Mediterranean, and I'm getting ready to get on a New Jersey Transit train, which may or may not make it into Penn Station. Thank you for that, Amir. You just made my day.
Gary, it should be the opposite. I'm in your room even though I'm on vacation. Come on. Right. Okay.
Well, it's interesting too that Marshall is in Texas and underwater, and you're on a Greek island and over water. You sound
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Okay, so, right, so as you said, Gary, the pressure is put on Israel not to attack Hezbollah, obviously, while Iran doesn't have to stop funding proxies. I mean, does that make any sense to anybody? It doesn't make any sense to me. And the question in your title, Trump throwing Israel under the bus for Iran. And what exactly is in it for Trump and US? I mean, does that make any sense, really? Certainly doesn't make sense to me. To be honest, none of this makes any sense. I think as it's so, there is definitely something in the wind. I don't know what it is. But unless Donald Trump is, I don't know, receiving a fat check for tens of millions of dollars from Iranians, none of this makes any sense. Not one iota. Last night you had a guest, Gary. I think his name was Anson. He was a spot on, and I think Marshall referred to it as well today. Anson said the initial attack was not well thought through. We all know that now. And the signing of the MOU is not well thought through. So this is one case. The two negatives do not make a positive. But I mean, at the end of the day, we are where we are, right? So what should be the focus now? I think that's what's important. I actually think that Israel is going to be Israel is going to be holding the most important cards again. I think Israel's strategy is kind of dealing with the proxies one at a time. It has been since 7th of October 7th. I mean, they dealt with Hamas. Effectively, I mean, Hamas is now ineffective, almost finished now. And now Israel has focused on Hezbollah. And Hezbollah definitely is the jewel in the crown as far as the proxies are concerned for Iran. And as far as Israel is concerned, Hezbollah needs to be exalted. And I totally agree with that. We know that Israel will continue attacking Hezbollah. I mean, there is no reason why they shouldn't. I mean, it's possible that could even be in coordination with the Lebanese army towards this, disarming Hezbollah altogether. I mean, there's talks of that, as you know. So, but until then, as you said again, Hezbollah is likely to keep firing missiles into Israel. Of course, Israel is obviously going to react to that. And then Iran may have to defend the proxy of the and then they should attack Iran. really probable. So it's really make your choice and look at it in whether you think that is a prolonged way or not, whether you think that's short termism or not. I mean, this is how this is going to pan out. You know. So I mean, I don't really know.
Nazis that are recruiting within athletic clubs across the country.
And by the way, those people, Andrew, just in case people are saying, all Gary cares about are the Jews, for God's sake, get off of it, Gary. Those people don't like a lot of minorities in Canada, and Canada is well known as being welcoming to people, especially refugees from around the world, and they don't like any of them. They don't like the Indians, they don't like the Pakistanis, they don't like anybody who is brown, they don't like anybody who is black. They are not just as neo-Nazis. Of course,
public enemy number one to them are the Jews, but they don't limit their hatred and their actions to just the Jews. More so to the Jews, yes, but not just to the Jews.
Semi-equal opportunity.
That's right. They're equal opportunity racists. Well put.
So that's that for that. We'll see how that all works out. Unfortunately, too, during one of the raids on some of these cells in Toronto, one police officer was killed, which I did not know until I read that today, which is terrible news. Just doing his job. In regards to your title, I'm just gonna, well, there's a couple things. When this war started, I was talking to a friend and I was lamenting about it. He says, you don't like this because of Donald Trump. I said, no, it's not because it's, well, it is kind of because it's Donald Trump. Because I never trusted this man. I know what his history is. We've all seen it. It's been in the newspapers. It's been on Twitter or X or wherever. It's everywhere. I know what this man is capable or incapable of. And we saw that on full display during this conflict. Taco Tuesdays, which was every other day. So I'm not surprised at all that it's turned out this way. I'm not surprised that Israel is kind of left holding the bag a wee bit. And I'm sure they will do what's in their best interest, naturally. But it is not at all surprising. I'm not shocked. The lead up to this, of course, was the invectives that he used last week to describe Netanyahu, four-letter word, expletives. So that doesn't bode well if your ally is saying that about you. And what this reminded me of, I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago, in terms of an allyship, if you will. It reminded me of how Winston Churchill and Franklin Delano Roosevelt regarded the French leader of the forces, the Free French Forces, de Gaulle. They considered him unstable, untrustworthy, and unreliable, and were very cautious about what they shared in terms of information with him, and really had him on as tight a leash as they could. And I think Donald is the Gaulle of our times in this regard. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Gary, thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you, and I want to admonish myself here because I listed many of the folks that the neo-Nazis are targeting in Canada. I forgot to say, although one group is considered, two groups that I consider mentioned are Asian, but I just want to say in general, Asians. They hate Asians. So
I want to escort them to the border at the point of a gun.
Of course they do. Of course they do. So this is not acceptable, and even if you don't care about the Jews, stand up for them. These other groups, stand up for yourself, because this is the direction that we're going in. And these people who hate Jews, look in the mirror. They may hate you as well, for whatever reason. And even if you are a Caucasian individual.
I'll tell you why, because I'm disabled. And
right.
That is part of all that eugenics.
Oh yeah, of course, the disabled as well. Yes. And if you are Caucasian and you are not of the right religious background, you're on the outs too. I don't know whether they are welcoming of Catholics in their ranks, but I know in the past they were pretty Protestant. You wouldn't find very many Catholics in the ranks of the neo-Nazis. If we have anybody who is a practicing Catholic who wants, in Canada in particular right now, who wants to join these neo-Nazi groups and express their religious background, just to see whether they would be accepted. I would be interested in knowing whether they would accept you into their fold or not.
Are you sending me on an undercover mission, Gary?
There you go. Are you Catholic?
I am.
Catholic and disabled, we're sending you, yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to remark, I'm not on a Greek island, but I'm closer to a geek island. So that's any consolation.
You're in Vancouver?
No, not Kitover. But I like that. I have family there, so I'm going to tell them.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Good contribution. We'll go to David, followed by Merrill. I'm sorry, David.
Hey, what's that?
I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry. My apologies. Our Mays, followed by David.
Okay, don't worry.
After all that, our Mays is on the phone. Our Mays, are you here? Okay. See,
we're all talking about this. The next CIA agent.
David, followed by Merrill.
Well, Trump's decision's got a whole lot more personal for me today. As my nephew, based on my photograph, was just sworn in today as a new Marine recruit, following the legacy of his grandfather, who was a colonel in the Vietnam War, West Point grad, and no amount of articulation could sway him from moving forward with this decision. So clearly, our commander-in-chief's decision has way more import now in our family, as this young man steps forward wearing the uniform and will maybe hopefully pay for his life for this nation. I hope not, but that's what he's signing up for. So throwing Israel under the bus, you know, Gary, I hate to say it, but he had no choice. And I say that reluctantly because the forces in America were growing so loud that, I mean, here's the deal, Gary. Here's the deal. If we really don't want to blame this on President Trump, we should put this before the Congress and do a vote. Do we continue?
Invocation of Satan, hail, Almighty One, ruler of the unseen.
And let our representatives make the call based upon their constituents and see what our democracy, our republic would result in terms of that decision. Because what we're doing here is we're doing a lot of gamemanship, and obviously Israel had the high ground with regard to going in the first place and talking Trump into this, and maybe it was done with false information.
So I was on Piers Morgan a couple of days ago with a panel.
Two great nations and all the money we spend on military and intelligence, that we could get it this long, only to backpedal with our tail between our legs and saying crying uncle when we were hoping that they would be the ones crying uncle here. You know, it reminds me of the song "The Gambler" by what was that singer? You got to know when to fold them, know when to walk, know when to run.
So I was on Piers.
Kenny Rogers. Yeah.
So I was on Piers Morgan a couple of days ago with a panel.
Rogers, that's right.
We're all talking about there was an ex-CIA agent, some guy that, you know,
This is one of those cases where we had to know when to fold them, and I think at the end of the day, we couldn't outlast the regime. Our economy could not outlast it. The pain of the American people could not outlast it. The loud voices on the right, the talking heads and the manosphere and the internet and the podcasts couldn't stand it. We're too close to the midterms. And I think all that the Republican Party has worked toward, and again, Gary, I've got my issues with regard to this president and with regard to my nephew joining the Marines, particularly with the ICE issues, the birthright citizenship even being debated. You talked about the mistreatment of religious minorities in this country and in Catholic Canada. Well, there's a reason Catholic Canada didn't join our vaunted revolution in Quebec. They fought fiercely to maintain their independence. It's because our founding fathers didn't the fealty to the Pope and the Vatican. There's a reason we've only had 2 Catholic presidents, and one of them got shot. So, you know, Gary, I think at the end of the day, America's got to do what America can do to survive as an empire. And if we can elevate and protect Israel along the way, we will, on every conceivable count. But if you listen to what J.D. Vance and the way he spoke, Gary, it was very disturbing. He was calling out strong voices, loud voices in the Israeli parliament, not really naming names, but talking about how much we give Israel in terms of defense and spending and tax dollars, and how this graciousness by our nation could could be rolled back. And you've got these voices telling you, yeah, we're not going to back down from Hezbollah. We don't care if the Americans not going to go into Iran for us. We're still going to attack Hezbollah and take care of our needs. And so I don't know if this memorandum is going to hold necessarily, Gary, as a result of those loud voices. And hopefully it does. But we are now at an inflection point where, unfortunately, on the one hand, anti-Semitism is being, amplified as a result of these geopoliticals being played out. I think that's an important learning point for us here with regard to how we defend our nation, how we beat back racism, anti-Semitism in our own countries and internationally. And somehow we've got to divorce the two, because the moment defending one's country and one's interests turns into something as a negative towards. This is the other thing J.D. Vance said. The other thing J.D. Vance said, Gary, and again, I've got all these things I've listened to and read about, but he basically said we're the only nation in the free world that has your back. And he was saying President Trump is the only massive head of state in the world today that is protecting you guys. And, you can make the argument, that Vance is trying to distinguish himself between Rubio, and he's preparing for a 2028 run, and Rubio is obviously very pro-Israel. So there's fractures within the Republican Party, Gary, and I think battle lines are being drawn right now. And Israel, unfortunately, is being used in a way that is reflecting us losing out more than gaining with regard to our relationship there.
I think a mistake a lot of people make about the Republican Party is assuming those lines are new. Those lines are 2014 lines, just more defined. The only thing Trump has done as the figurehead for the party is he's been able to stop all of that infighting, because he's the big figure in the room. But prior to him, the purity testing was terrible. The inter-party civil war was awful. So I agree with you, David. I just don't think the fault lines are new. I think the fault lines are old.
Yeah, but they're a lot louder now. They're not in cohesion like they were before all of this. Now
we don't have a Trump at the top of the ticket to take that cohesion and put it into a unified idea that elects somebody. Now it's just the people who will be battling for the seat, and they're going to straddle that as ugly as humanly possible. And I agree with you. Israel's got to be used as one of those tug and pull things, and you're going to, as Ted Cruz said, have a wing of the party that is anti-Semitic, and you're going to have a wing of the party that's not, which is very sad.
Well, what kind of door does that open for the Democrats, we have very strong Jewish leadership in the form of Josh Shapiro?
Well, yeah, but the Democrats on the far left-hand side have their own issue with anti-Semitism too. So yeah, it's not like the other party gets to sit in judgment of the Republicans and go, oh, you Jew haters, right? Because the next thing Republicans will do will just be to go pick people on the Democratic side who have said anti-Semitic things, clearly hateful things about Jews, and it'll just become like a mud throwing contest, which neither party will win.
Yeah, but see, here's where the pivot might happen on behalf of Israel and AIPAC, right? You got Hakeem Jeffries, you got Rahm Emanuel. You've got other places you can back and try to get your interests served. It's not a zero-sum game with the Republicans. So
they don't just donate to Republicans. AIPAC and its subsidiaries donate to approximately 300 members of the U.S. House.
Exactly. So my point is that if the Israeli question sows too much division and fractures the party, maybe there's an end for the Democrats to fill that void somehow. I guarantee the voice is getting louder and louder from an anti-Israel perspective that I'm seeing in the Republican Party. And you don't have a lot of politicians that are really readily embracing or addressing how serious that is, in my opinion. So, we'll see how it plays out going into the midterms. But I think Netanyahu and the Israeli government, we're at an inflection point here, where one, we can't have Iran continuing to dominate and monopolize the strait, which is what they're doing. But we can't have Israel also. We got to figure out a way to check the Hezbollah game without that destroying that. Otherwise, it's all bets are off with the Republicans going into the midterms, and we'll have inflation forever, in my opinion.
Thank you for that, David. What I'll go to Merrill, followed by Duke.
Yeah. I like the name of the topic because I do think that Israel's been thrown under the bus. What amazes me is the perspective that some people have. And Gary, you talked about something very noble. That Trump could have been doing this because it was for us too. That we are victims of the terrorism. I don't know if you meant it, that's your view, or if you were just putting that out there as some other way to look at different ways to look at things. I don't look at it that way. I look at Trump in a bigger picture. Let's start with he let Bibi come in and sit in the situation, and Netanyahu presented what he thought. He said he thought they were at that Iran. This was a weak point for them, and we'd already done this in June. Now we can try this, and it'll be over in 2 months. And the real true voices that know what they're talking about were General Kane, Marco Rubio, who said this is. General Kane supposedly said that this is true. Netanyahu he presents things and he exaggerates. And Marco Rubio said this is farcical to believe that. Trump didn't know what farcical meant. That's been reported. And Trump, he wasn't just listening to Bibi. He wasn't doing it for what you might think is a noble cause. I don't. When you have generals, people who know what it's like, they understand what is going to happen and what it involves. And you don't just put your military out there like that. You have a guy who glorifies himself using the military. He thinks bombing is great. He thinks, hey, this is, you go in there and you say this and you say that, and you're strong and you look good. And it didn't work out. It didn't work out. And he did not want to see, in the very beginning, when everybody was getting angry, they were saying, you're right under Israel's thumb. Once again, you're doing something for Israel. And he wasn't really doing it for Israel, but it gave that appearance. And now he wants to look strong again. He enters into an agreement that it's almost bizarre, the agreement with itself, and then says to Israel, criticizes Israel for bombing apartments. Well, when he abandoned Ukraine, he didn't mind Russia bombing apartments. So that's very hypocritical here. Trump does what he thinks is in Trump's best interest. And if it means knocking Israel right now, he will do it. And another thing that he's always done is he says, hey, Biden never cared. Other presidents never cared. And that's not true. Presidents did care about Israel. They just didn't want to go to war with Iran because they knew how difficult it would be. They knew it. And I would remind you, you talked about Lebanon. Reagan, unless I'm mistaken, when Israel went into Beirut and defended to defend themselves essentially, Reagan was angry and he criticized them. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he held up weapons for a while. Nobody wanted to do this. And Biden was the smart, Obama was the one who said, maybe we could do this diplomatically. We'll get what we can get. And didn't 17 other countries join in on that? It took months and months and months, and it didn't take real estate agents and people with self-interest to go and negotiate. It took people who were negotiators, people who knew what they were doing. But I don't believe that Trump did this for any noble cause. I think he did it because he saw himself as a hero. He saw, I can use our military and I'll bomb them and I can say this and I can say that and I can say Biden never did it and Obama never did it. And he could brag about himself, and it didn't work out. And so now who does he blame? Now he's going to say Israel. Israel's going to create a problem now. They better not do this. They're creating a problem for me. And a deal that is absurd. We might not know all the details, but from what we know, it is absurd. There's no way. This is a man who for years told us we can't trust Iran, and all of a sudden he signs a deal and says they're really rational people, they're good people. This is stupid and it's wrong. And what I don't like is I don't like anything noble is attributed to him, because I don't believe he did it for a noble cause. If you were going to do it for a noble cause and utilize our military the way you would have to use them, you would have done it right. You would have had the right strategy. You would have risked them. You would have put them at risk. But he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to take a shortcut and believe that he could take a shortcut because bombing sounds good and bombing looks good, and you say you're bombing them and you're going to bomb them right at, the civilization, the loser civilization. It's not normal. It's not right. And it's sure as hell isn't noble. And who did get emboldened by this? I absolutely agree. Every anti-Semite, and every anti-Semite, by the way, usually does associate Israel with Jews. It's not separate. They don't normally think Israel is one thing and the Jews are another. And the far left, we can't get away. I'm a Democrat, we do everything in the world we can to get away from the far left, because they have been emboldened. They hate Israel, they don't like the Jews, and you just, every day that you criticize Israel, you are emboldening the people that hate them. And I resent that. I do resent that. I have friends in Israel who don't like some of the things that are going on. They don't like some of the things that Israel does. However, they also on Passover didn't like to have to run to a shelter 16 times. So yes, he threw him under the bus. But couldn't anybody have predicted that he would? Who doesn't he throw under the bus to glorify himself? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Meryl. We'll go to Dude, followed by Lev.
So I'll just say something that I noticed, and I think we talked about, was just the, I guess, information war, like the spread of ideology, rhetoric, propaganda, whatever have you. We saw massive amounts of students protesting at academic institutions. I would say, instead of saying thrown under the bus, that both the two men in question did a terrible job of public relations ever since October 7th.
We're not talking about, hold on, we're not talking about PR, we're talking about PR, we're talking about the nation.
Hold on.
We're not talking about the men.
We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that.
Address that?
I'm well aware of what you just said, so thank you so much for interrupting and confirming that.
Yes, moderators are allowed to do that. Gary says that we are allowed to interject.
Gary says I can be rude and obnoxious. Gary says that I can be rude and obnoxious.
So one of the things that was mentioned actually here, and this is coming from a Reuters article, it's just in France.
Marshall.
Basically, there was a bunch of the Western Democratic leaders in congregation together, and basically Donald Trump he wanted to thank Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping for being apparently neutral, and then kind of ostracize the allies for not clearing out the Strait of Hormuz. Very interesting, rhetoric. Praising the nations that are working closely together with Iran and the IRGC, Russia and China, and then also condemning the actions of the democratic Western institutions and leaders. I don't think that's going to turn out too well. It already didn't turn out well. Had these tariffs not already kind of pissed off the leaders of democratic countries, maybe Donald Trump would have had more help.
I need you to address the subject, not what you want the
Sorry, is
subject
that
to
my
be.
name on this app, Marshall?
Dude, whatever. I need you to address the subject.
No, I'll just be silent because of your
You are not
disrespect.
addressing the subject.
No, I'm going to stop talking because of your disrespect.
It's not disrespect. It's asking you to do something. Come on.
Come on!
It's really not that.
I'm a rude, obnoxious person, and Gary says I can be rude and obnoxious. My name is Marshall Rankin. I'm a Republican out of Hidalgo County, and I hate Donald Trump.
You want to try to continue or no?
No, dude.
No, sir.
Wow, Marshall.
Go ahead.
Somebody needs to get punched in his
If you're
fucking
interested,
face.
go ahead. I'm going on the list.
I'm gonna send Marshall Rankin to a re-education camp. That's it. We have to take the country over. We can't let people like Marshall Stankin Rankin blow their bad breath all day long on Clown House. It's un-American.
Well, I'll be honest, John. It would be better for Marshall to read a book right now.
That's right. Isn't that right? So right.
100%. He needs to read a book. Or he should at least start coming into your rooms more often when you do the meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And by putting
Mm-hmm.
Israel under the bus,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to want to deal with the U.S. as an ally? Right? When you're just going to get
Probably anybody that wants free shit.
And Israel has been working as our proxy in the Middle East. The Middle East is important to us not because it's a strategic area, because the world's oil goes through there, fertilizer, basically the economy depends on it. And we're not there, we need someone there. And they've had our back. There was the Osiris nuclear plant in Iraq. They bombed it. We, along with everyone else, played that we hated that they did that. But that's why Saddam Hussein did not have a nuclear weapon and mass destruction when 10 years later. And then there was Stuxnet in Iran in 2010. And then Israel saved our butt too. They took those centrifuges and made it so that the uranium that it was producing was crap. And so I really hate this thing where people say that we're doing this for Israel. No, Israel has been helping us. We have a common need, and they are our allies. And we have to protect our allies, or we are going to be a second-rate power. Thank you.
I just want to focus on something that you said. Well, it's actually your main point, and I just want to be sure that we are clear on what you were saying. There are people who are opposed to this war and who are very vitriolic toward Israel, who claim that the United States is doing Israel's bidding, that we are Israel's proxy. Are you arguing that that's not the case, but that Israel is our proxy, and they're looking at it from the wrong side of the telescope?
That's much closer. Yes, what you're saying is much closer. Yes, I don't think. I think obviously Israel has a common interest, just like allies do. But we care if we think of China as being our main adversary, and the control of oil, throughout history, the control of resources means power. And the world military runs on oil. That's been true for 120 years. And it keeps on being true. So I think that's, so we have a big interest in what Iran does with their reserves and the
Strait of Hormuz, and they're they're Arab countries that are there and they've always been enemies of the Iranians and vice versa.
So a lot of discussion, Les, has surrounded, and it's been said on stage here today and many times in the past. Marshall made the point very well that the president never properly sold this to the American people. Is one of the components of this the fact that the general public does not necessarily understand your point that this action is Israel assisting the United States, even though obviously the desires of Israel and the United States overlap, as opposed to the United States running to the rescue of Israel. I don't know. Maybe it's the fairer assessment is that it's symbiotic, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. Both countries gain from the action, and one country is not controlling the other, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make.
Right. But so the other thing in terms of making the other part of having allies is you know that you're going to need money to run a war, and we have a constitution, and it says the Congress is the one that raises the money for the war, and when the Congress okays a military conflict, you know you have the population behind you, and you can sustain a longer war. And I think that is a failure too. You can't do a war. People have no attention span, and obviously wars are very expensive, and they also tie down our military. But we need to have the American people involved through their legislature, not just willy-nilly, people putting us into wars and stuff.
So I think, Les, there are two reasons for that. If we are to analyze it, and others may not agree, and you might not agree, but I think the two reasons are: A, the president is autocratic. He likes to work unilaterally. He doesn't like anything standing in the way of what he wants to do, and he will do whatever he can do until properly challenged in the courts, I guess. Without, it's like don't ask permission first. Do what you have to do, and then deal with the fallout later. So that's one half of this situation. I think the other half could possibly be the issue that Marshall raised earlier, that the president anticipated this would be over in 6 weeks. And so he didn't have to worry about going to Congress, because the War Powers Act would not, he's got 30 days. And then an additional 30 days. So that's within the 6-week period. And he probably thought maybe that it wouldn't even get to this point of 3.5 months.
And the other thing I'm concerned about is historically when Mr. Trump has an issue like inflation or something, he blames a predecessor or someone else. And I would be surprised if Trump blames Israel and Netanyahu for the problems.
Well, the other day I graphically described the piñata that's already hanging in the Oval Office in the shape of Benjamin Netanyahu and the president with a stick in his hand. And I could see in my mind that political cartoon, even though I don't have the ability without the assistance of AI to draw it myself. Thank you, Les. We'll go to Daryl, followed by Ali.
Hey, yeah, I didn't think I was going to make it up. But to Marshall's point and to you and Les's point, I'm a bit more cynical. You know, Marshall made some great points when he talked about the inability to kind of sell this thing, right? You know, even wars are marketed to people. I guess my question would be when we say he thought it was going to be over in 6 weeks, right? The reason I challenge that is because, you know, even to Merrill's point, every analyst had said that that's just not what it's going to be. And yeah, we can make the argument that he doesn't listen to anyone. You know, I forgot the secretary that said he doesn't read the president's daily briefings. He's a guy who believes that his instincts will always lead him to victory, even though he's had massive failures in his professional career as well. My question would be, did he actually believe that it would be over that quickly? Or was that so he wouldn't have to go to Congress? Meaning, again, we go back to this thing. This was supposed to be a skirmish. This was never supposed to be a war. Did they actually believe that this would be over in 6 weeks? Or was that a ruse so that they would not have to declare war and actually go get Congress's buy-in? Either way, this is an abject failure. And he will absolutely blame Netanyahu because
It's an abject failure because they didn't commit 1 million troops like Marshall Rankin wanted them to.
You know, when the casinos failed, it wasn't his fault, it was the Russians. When this fails, it won't be his fault. Nothing is his fault because he will always hang someone out to dry when things don't go his way. You know, look, I say this again, look at Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was a great attorney. He's his personal attorney.
A great
All of this and all
attorney.
of that. And when things got ugly, he cut him loose. He cuts everyone loose. I think if something ever happened here,
Where's
where
the
let's just say
loyalty?
it's a really bad thing, he'd cut his own country loose. He'd say it's not his fault, he'd blame it on the FBI, or he'd blame it on the CIA, or he'd blame it on whoever he would blame it on, because nothing is his fault.
Trump
And there's a certain type
derangement
of personality
syndrome
type that
is
will never assume
everywhere
blame
you
for
look.
anything.
Today is the biggest
Because
Barack
he's
Hussein
not
and
the one
Michelle
who made the
Obama
decision.
propaganda
He's
day
the one who made the
ever.
decision based
Every
on
single
something
major
someone told
media
him.
outlet in the entire
And if it
fucking
goes
world
awry,
is
then it's the
toasting
fault
the
of whoever
grace
told him whatever it is
of
they told him.
Barack Hussein Obama. And little old me, I'm the only
That's
one
it.
on X posting the truth.
Thank you for that, Daryl. We'll go to Ali.
I'm totally upsetting the ecosystem with Barack Hussein Obama
Hey, buddy,
today.
haven't heard you in a little bit. Good to hear you on.
Yeah, sure. I think this is my, I don't know, first time here, I don't know. I'm Iranian myself. I've done my best in the last 4 months, just educating myself on matters, actual politics and stuff. It's not major, but I educated myself well during this period. I think America, more than throwing Israel under the bus, they have done some sort of economic future calculations, and they came to this conclusion that it's not beneficial for them to be allied with Israel, sending taxpayer money to Israel to wage war in the region, because first it's bad for reputation of America, because Israel is not doing, they're basically doing dirty job in the Middle East.
To give you an idea, America gave a whole bunch of money to Israel. Hang on, Gary, for a second. Give you that idea.
So, where do you conclude? We know that the United States is withdrawing from this action, and Israel probably would rather that they not. But do you have some indication to back what you just said, that the United States no longer wants to assist Israel militarily?
So, no. Indication is whatever J.D. Vance and Trump says these days, and
Well, what have they said about that? Have Vance or Trump given any indication, have threatened to withhold military?
This is the very beginning phase of it.
But you just made the assertion that the United States has decided that it's not in the United States' best interest to be aligned with Israel because you believe that the United States is recognizing what you advocate and that Israel is doing horrible things in the Middle East. And I'm asking you, I'm not arguing with you your misplaced perception of Israel standing in the Middle East. I don't want to get into that right at this moment. But I'm asking you, where do you see any indication that the United States is cutting and running from Israel in entirety, such as you have suggested?
Yeah, Gary. First of all, I said that this is my opinion. I'm listening.
Obviously, it is, and that's why I'm asking you the question because I'm really interested in hearing your opinion.
Gary, try to be patient. Just let me finish.
But understand that I am the moderator here, and I am trying to get you to expand on your position, which to me fell off the rails, and I'm trying to get you to go back within the guidelines of our discourse here.
Yeah, Gary.
I'm not interrupting you to start an argument. As I say in the beginning of every program, that if I were a moderator, we can do this all day. If I were
It's the Gary Baumgarten Talks Over You show non-stop.
Interrupting my attempt to explain.
I am a moderator. You will do as you are told.
Thank you. I appreciate that you are not an alligator. You actually have ears. So if I ask a person a question, it's to try to properly moderate the room and make sure that we're on target and everybody understands the position the person is making, and not to start an argument. I'm being very polite with you, even though it's obvious you and I have exceedingly diametric views with regard to Israel's place in the Middle East. You made an assertion. I understand that assertion is your opinion, because who else's opinion would you be articulating? Everybody who comes on the stage, if we can presume, are giving their opinion and not somebody else's. So I'm asking you how do you back your opinion up? What facts are there to suggest that the United States has decided that Israel is a bad player in the Middle East and is being completely abandoned by the United States of America?
Okay. First of all, I didn't say completely. We are just seeing the very beginning phase of it. In a level that Trump and J.D. Vance themselves started to talk about Israel.
We're all talking about there was an ex-CIA agent. Some guy that,
I'm talking about
just
the last
like
2
hated
days
the
or
way the
something.
whole
Okay.
investigation
But
was on
understanding that Israel is
JFK.
a bad
And then it was me.
actor in
So,
the region, it's obvious for everyone. Don't you see the protests against Israel all over
Well,
the
that proves that Israel is a bad actor in the region. That proves it. I think that the caller is wishfully thinking and using this as an opportunity to use this stage to say how horrible the state of Israel is. The discussion today is not about how horrible or how great the state of Israel is. The question today is whether, in this particular instance, and maybe I had to be more specific, that we're talking about the memorandum of understanding, which I thought everybody got, especially based on the opening salvo, is Israel being tossed under the bus by Trump. Not whether this is the first step by the United States. First of all, the United States Congress is not going to defund Israel. And if the caller understood how things work in Washington, he would know that the purse strings are not controlled by the White House. The purse strings are controlled by the Congress. So it doesn't really even matter if he were correct, which there's no indication that he's correct, that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump want to defund the state of Israel. There is no appetite for that in Congress. Well, there are
No, they selfishly want what they think is good for the country, and they don't really care. It's their selfishness about their view that drives their thoughts. At least in my mind, it's their selfishness about their own view that drives their thoughts.
Gary, if you get a chance, read the message on the Facebook.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I know what your message says. I'm sorry, I was reading it.
One night only.
Come on. You know, we've been at this too long.
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty.
That's the beauty of it. Thank you, Marshall. Thank you, Alan. We'll go to Haran, and we'll see whether we get somebody else in there. Haran, are you with me or not?
There you go, buddy. Okay. So what I'm looking at also is how do this tie in with Gaza? Because I think it's a smoke screen that's going up because the stuff still going on with Gaza.
I'm sorry, all I got from that is going on in Gaza. Slow down and try it again. Because I'm having trouble understanding it. I apologize for that, but I'll pay closer.
All right, so what I'm saying is that we also got to pay attention to smoke screens because they still doing activity. I was talking about Israel with the United States with Gaza while the Iran stuff is going on.
So you're suggesting that all this is to divert our attention to what Israel is doing in Gaza, which apparently you object to.
So, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Maybe, but Gaza's been pretty quiet of late, and we'll see. We'll see whether.
Well, you know, a couple of weeks ago, they still was hitting some of Hamas over there in Gaza.
Oh, they're going to continue to hit Hamas in Gaza, of course. And they are going and they are assassinating, and you may think that this is a bad thing. Other people may think it's a good thing, but you're absolutely correct. Israel is
doing it.
Israel is still in Gaza, and they're assassinating those Hamas leaders that were responsible for or participated on the October 7th terrorist attack. Absolutely correct.
And they would not let some of the residents back in. That was on news last week.
Well, I know that there are security zones in Gaza, and I know that some people feel that that has unfairly displaced people. Some people feel that it is necessary. Some people say that it's a collective punishment. Other people believe that the folks in Gaza obviously support Hamas, and so the collective punishment is appropriate in that regard. And I think there's a debate about that. But I don't know that there's so much attention and concern right now about Gaza that the attention is switched to what's going on with regard to Hezbollah. The issue at hand really is, and that's not to say Hamas doesn't still, as an Iranian proxy, want the demise of the state of Israel. I'm sure you agree that's correct, what I just said, right? Hamas is right, okay. But the issue right now is Hamas has been relatively quiet. The problem is that Hezbollah continues to attack northern Israel, and a key component of the memorandum of understanding is that Israel will not continue its military activities in southern Lebanon, and that's why we are discussing Lebanon and not Gaza. I don't know if that satisfies the point you were raising or not.
Yes, because the reason why I say that, because I remember you saying about the selfishness of the administration, because the thing that they had raised up, what they wanted to do with Gaza, was to make it a Riviera.
You are correct that the president floated the idea of turning Gaza into some kind of a tropical paradise, and the insinuation is that he or his family and or his associates would benefit from that. I haven't heard much about that in a long time, though. I have no idea. I'm glad you bring up the issue because I think it deserves renewed attention. Is there still a plan to turn Gaza into a Riviera? Maybe it can be a fait accompli now that the Hamas is really...
Fait accompli!
Right?
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Haran. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday from 5 o'clock New York time. So until 5 o'clock New York time tomorrow. For the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum, everybody be safe, be well, and peace out.
Peace, Gary. Bye. Great room, Gary. Wow. Another banger. Numbers just through the roof. Over 1,000 people. Oh my God. The ComScore metrics are going through the roof. The Needleson metrics. Wow. Gary, what a room. Amazing. Great. Good stuff.
You wanted me to kick them around, Spirit, so you are fucking trolling us? No. The guy was just telling everyone you're faking it. Damn. You want me to invite him back?
So that's why I'm confused. I'm like, I know that there was an option for me to invite all my friends.
Matthew's not an eyewitness.
This is Millith, Zeleny, Sully, Frenchie, Converse, Dave. This is an all-star collection. Bob is here. The biggest waste of time in the Clown House universe. I give you the Beef stage. Open philosophy.
I don't think it dissolves.
God is now.
God is now, except in these people's rooms.
But I don't see any reason to give such, I don't know, great credence.
It's like endless discussions.
Do you agree?
Well, that's what happens when you're retarded and you got brain rot and you're redundant and you can't do anything new, so you just keep coming back and doing the same. It's playing the same video game over and over. It's watching the same movie over and over. Eventually, you go, yeah, I don't want to watch it anymore. So you got to choose something new, and these retards can't seem to choose anything new because they have no other interests. They don't read books. If these F words were to just come here and read an effing book for 10 minutes, it would make all their other experiences be uselessly wasteful. It's just a fact. Here we are.
Every breath that we take is one breath that
I
we're in heaven, right?
I think the whole Adam and Eve metaphor thing is that we are Adam and Eve. Jesus was Adam and Eve. And Jesus beat the game. But when you beat the game and you get martyred on a stick, ouch, that hurts.
I think that's true of everyone.
But I think the whole Adam and Eve story is you have to try to visualize yourself as Adam in the garden, and Eve is over there eating the apple, whispering with a snake, and you're like, nothing's really changed. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that is has already been. It's Groundhog Day! Ned Ryerson?
I don't think that the consensus position gets any stronger based on the bare fact that it is consensus, right? It's just happens to be it's a fairly contingent sociological fact. This happens to be the consensus position, but the arguments are what they are for it. They don't get any better That's a lot of spam that happens to have
It is. This is just spam. Spam. It's a spam industrial complex. And today is the biggest Democrat spam pump out of all time because of Barack Hussein Obama's mega event and his tower of lies and propaganda. ABC, NBC, CBS, agencies, news networks you've never even heard of from all around the world pumping out the Obama lie.
It's all departing in one
the
direction.
Obama Presidential Library.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the chances that like you're going to depart?
You gotta go to John Kitover.
Sticking out from the ground. That's the library.
You gotta go to John Kitover and X, and I think I texted you my infographic about how Michelle is trans and part of an ongoing CIA conspiracy all the way dating back to JFK's assassination. Barack and Michelle are 100% CIA puppets. George Bush and Bill Clinton put them there to continue the scam. And Barack Hussein Obama was sucking dicks in Gurney doing meth. It's out of the record. The man is an actor, a faggot retard, an N-word, halfway. His mother was a CIA prostitute honeypotter. I've got the photos of Barack Hussein Obama's mama naked. I pointed out yesterday, and I'm so surprised you don't remember the lengthy conversation we had yesterday, and the past 3,000 days, but here we are.
My assessment of the historical value of our earliest sources about the writing of the Gospels, namely the Church Fathers. I think that they are much more valuable than most scholars do. And so, given that, that is what leads me to, for example, be sympathetic to the priority of Matthew's Gospel, to traditional authorship, to early dates. So all these points that you're saying go in one direction spring from this one disagreement with mainstream scholarship.
Yeah, I'm buying it.
Yeah, I don't know, like that doesn't, maybe that's right, but like, that doesn't seem like, so it's just like, you think that the early church witnesses that you mentioned, like Clement of Alexandria, whoever else, right? You think that the witnesses of those people, right, is so strong and so compelling that like it drives all of the other things that you think.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say it's the sole driver, because like obviously I have additional reasons for believing in traditional authorship, but I think that is the primary sort of difference between me and mainstream scholarship. I'm interested, what are the early sources have to tell us? And I don't disagree, or I do disagree with mainstream scholarship. We sort of have reasons to discount what they say from the start.
So, insofar as you have other reasons to depart from mainstream scholarship when it comes to all of the points that, like, you know, are like, so let's say like Clement of Alexandria and whatever is the main reason for you departing from thinking that, like, you know, Luke depends on Matthew or whatever, or Matthew wrote Matthew. Let's say that's the main reason. But insofar as you have other reasons, those reasons are undermined by pointing out that this all goes in one direction. Also, like, shit, there's another point I was going to make.
I have a point that was. Please make it, Sully. It kind of seems like, I mean, this is actually breaking up, you guys. What about now? Am I good now?
Yes.
You are good now. Please proceed.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like when you talk about like scholarship, especially secular scholarship, it's almost built into the concept of like secular scholarship that they're trying to put themselves at a distance from being like theologians or something, or like religious historians rather than secular historians or scholars, yeah. So like I wonder how much of that like inclines them not to take certain things seriously, because it's like, okay, if we take the writings of these church fathers too seriously,
I think
like,
this F word was on YouTube doing this like lengthy 5-hour podcast.
Maybe that's like a methodology issue.
He's incredibly pathetic. Sully, only reason I'm in the room is because I'm in anonymous. These people hate me so much because I mock them for wasting all their time. Hi, can I place order for pickup? John. Awesome. Can I get the half chicken? Plantain and potato. Can I get 2 beef empanadas? That's it. Correct. Okay, great. See you soon. Thanks.
The Gospel of John was written by the Apostle John.
John?
Maybe some of that seems in like conflation of those two.
Maybe we should read one of these books. Maybe we should read the book of John. Maybe we should read the book of Matthew.
Because, like, I don't think
It's never gonna happen.
you know, at least on
People don't read anymore. They just talk all the time. Non-stop. Every day. 7 days a week.
all of your beliefs.
80 hours a week.
Matthew's authorship, Luke's authorship, the connection between the two, like all of the things that you're using to bolster, like, you know, the first order resurrection case, right, are all just actually like from, you know, centuries later, from like people that were not in any way like, you know, close to the events, that like are like in the tradition that are saying these things.
I don't think I would agree that the historian is Clement of Alexandria for centuries from the events.
They're further removed than the Gospels.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's like the sources that tell us that Tacitus wrote the Annals are obviously further removed from the Annals.
No, but so okay, so the first order resurrection case is like, well, these Gospels, they're written so close, they're written by eyewitnesses. They're you know, they claim to be like, you know, having sources or whatever, right? Like that's the first order case. And then like
First
you
order.
push on that.
Don't read a book. Don't ever read a book. Don't ever read a book.
I just believe all that stuff because like there are early church fathers that like said it, right? And they're not as close in date as like the Gospels are, right? And what they're saying is like
depend on, you know, historical sources for what we think about history.
Sorry?
I'm just saying, like, that's what we do, right? Our beliefs about history depend on what people in the past wrote. Like, I'm not doing anything different here.
No, I know, but usually when we have this debate, right, like, you don't usually just say, well, what we should actually be debating instead of, like, you know, authenticity of the Gospels or, like, how good they are as, like, you know, credible, you know, witnesses or whatever. You don't, like, you don't say, like, initially, like, you never say, well, what we should actually be debating is, like, how good of a witness is Clement of Alexandria? Because that's the major reason why I believe all of these other things, right? So, like, I think that's progress to my mind. Like, I think I've shown that the first order resurrection case that you make is basically useless, right? It's the second order part that's important.
So I don't think that's completely true, right? I think if you want to challenge the eyewitness claim or you want to challenge that they're lying about this, so those premises in the argument, then yes, I think early external, like early church father sources become very important for that. Again, I do want to highlight that's not the entirety of it because again, like on that they're not lying claim. I think like Tacitus and Suetonius are doing a shit ton of work there as well, so it's not just early church fathers.
I was on Pierce Morgan.
But I hear your point. So like I do think when it comes to the eyewitness claim and
some guy that
they're not lying
just
claim,
like hated
church fathers are important there. Now, when you're saying they're not honestly mistaken claim, not so much, right? That's largely going to depend on the content of the Gospels themselves and like psychological reasons to think that there can't be mass hallucinations and so on and so forth. So I do hear what you're saying, but I guess I want to say I don't think it's completely true. Like, I think there are some qualifications. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair.
Some guy that
Another banger room, guys. Your debates I mean, these conversations and debates are just fascinating. I'm learning so much.
We bored everyone to tears.
Correct. As usual. Let's start talking about pronouns, of course, and how we should always, always respect a pronoun. Michelle Obama arrived at the presidential library and had such grace, such poise, such beauty. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I've been thinking.
They were so shocked that I'm like confident at speaking.
We are shocked that you are confident at speaking.
Of the Gospels that pushes back against late dating.
I do have a video on my YouTube channel. I gotta warn you, it's about 5 hours long, but it's called The Dating of the Gospels, a Critical Analysis, where I discuss this. But if you mean like published formally, then like
No problem.
I need formal publishing. Clubhouse demands formal publishing.
Compress it so we can read it.
yeah, I can post it in the chat if you're.
Okay, yeah, I'm interested to look at that. Because that's one way that one can actually continue this discussion. Because most people are not actually familiar with why the scholars dated late, so they just come in and say, appeal to authority, scholars dated late, and then everything stalls. So
I mean, I could tell you the main reasons. I think at least subconsciously, even if not overtly stated, a huge reason for dating the gospel so late is that Jesus just very obviously predicts that like the temple is going to be destroyed in 70 AD, and there's kind of this, again, maybe not explicitly stated, but at least implicit, like naturalistic assumption that like, oh, that just can't happen. So obviously the honest about this. So obviously writing.
we're all talking. Yeah.
That's a huge amount of work and why the Gospels are dated late.
Yeah, fall of Jerusalem.
Wait, when did the temple fall?
I think past
70 AD. So Jesus predicted 70 and fell in 70.
No, he didn't say 70. He just said that it would fall, and then it happened on the date. That year.
Said it would happen within a generation.
Yeah, he also said that at least the children around him would still be alive when like the world ended. That didn't happen either.
Yeah, the book itself contains kind of predictions of the fall of Jerusalem. So any secular person looking at it might think it was written after the fact, right? But they can still do that probabilistically. They don't have to be like dogmatic, right? Because any one of us, if you found a book, predicting events, right? At least part of your reasoning should be that, it could be like it was written after. I think it's a reasonable kind of thing to think about.
But at the very least,
yeah, you should at least likely it was written late.
You could also wonder if there was a version of the gospel that didn't include that was earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like when it was added, the gospel.
Sort of, but the idea would be that the Gospels as we know them are post 70 AD, but there were Gospels before that.
Yeah, that could be just is it Mark or Luke where they added an ending, right? Because it just otherwise just stops, right? With the women running away and not saying anything. Yeah, no, that's all that was being said though, right? Is maybe that was put in, but the rest is.
All the mainstream scholars say that the Gospels we have, they're written but they go. The contents of the Gospels go back way earlier. The stuff that they're writing about goes back earlier than before that.
Yeah.
Is anyone saying
that we don't have manuscripts that are actually that old, from my understanding. Like, and this is why the dating is like contentious.
That's also contentious.
It's what's contentious.
I don't think anyone argues that there weren't like oral traditions like going back much earlier.
Well, I was just saying Sully's claim about manuscripts. P64 is our earliest manuscript of the Gospel of Matthew. There are some scholars who put that at 66 AD. Now, most scholars put it 2nd century, so it's obviously not.
That's still 30 years later, right?
Sure.
Also, you're saying we don't have anything.
No, but it's before 70 is the point. Like, I'm guessing that fragment doesn't contain the prophecy.
Yeah, I don't actually remember which chapters it is, but I don't think it's all of the discourse, so probably not.
Dave, do you know when the Dead Sea Scrolls were written?
Well, they're not all written at the same time. Yeah. Are you talking about when are they sealed within the Dead Sea, within like the different caves?
Weren't the Dead Sea Scrolls like written over a couple 100-year period?
The Dead Sea Scrolls aren't related to New Testament.
Well, a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls, a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls stuff is like.
Let's read a book. Let's just talk about a book. Let's never read a book. Let's talk and get our dopamine endlessly, forever, without ever saying anything intelligent or reading anything about what we're talking about. Let us continue talking forever. Let us help the non-native English speakers around the world learn our English capabilities.
Like the earliest full gospel that we have.
It's like I think 300, let's say, the 300, something like that. Or maybe it's a little bit earlier than that, maybe.
Yeah, I've heard that. So that's why if you want early dating, you have to settle for like parts of it, maybe like a chapter.
I mean, it's not even that, it's that, so, like, airmen and these type of people, they'll tell you that even though we have this and these are from here, the content within them goes back much earlier, right?
But converse, it is controversial because 7Q5 could be a fragment of the Gospel of Mark. We don't have that much on it, but the only known match.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, even if
Dead Sea Scrolls.
Wait, what is?
7Q5.
And that's New Testament material?
Arguably, it's been argued that the only known match
then it's not.
is young.
Well, then it's not part of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
It is.
Dead Sea Scrolls is from like 200 years before Jesus.
Well, I think it spans a large period of time.
Yeah, that's what my understanding was as well.
No, the Qumran Cave Scrolls?
Yeah, I mean, this one was found in Qumran Cave 7, and I thought that one was sealed in the 1st century, so that's why there's a possibility for a 1st century date for 7Q5. I think that's just my reading. I mean, again, it'd be really interesting if 7Q5 is the Gospel of Mark. I mean, the latest possible date for it is 50 AD, so that's very interesting. Sorry, Sully, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was just saying there is a little bit of disagreement, at least with Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because Matthew and Luke, we've got arguably like 60s manuscripts, and we've got a manuscript of the Gospel of Mark that's arguably 50s. But again, mainstream scholarship, to Miller's point, would disagree with that.
I just Googled it. That was 5 or 20 letters. And you're trying to say it's like part of Mark?
I did say it was debatable.
I think if historians use that idea, they'll just be consistent. Because if you saw a secular work, where maybe the Roman emperor who used to like do miracles was like foretelling something, like I think they would still probably guess that it was written after the fact, right? Like I think what nails it down is the kind of thing Sully was asking, like if we had evidence that the kind of thing that temple prediction thing was floating around before some church father quoted it or something like that. But where we could nail it down, that was definitely before 1780. That would settle it. Otherwise, it doesn't settle it because we have it in there, and the only thing you can tell us is, oh, it's your kind of like bias against miracles. Because you really don't have it. You just have, it's just equivalent to like some Roman emperor who saying, foretelling something, which historians wouldn't believe. If some other non-Christian source was kind of like predicting the fall of the temple or whatever, and that's all they had, they would also probably guess that it was written after the fact, unless they could really nail it down, that it really was floating around before 780. So I think they're doing the right thing there. It's not good enough evidence on its own. We need something that really nails it down before 780.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we can nail it down, barring, the sorts of fragments that I earlier alluded to. Obviously, if those are pretty 17, then of course, at least.
Yeah, but Dave, I think you would concede this, not an unreasonable thing if you've got some text that makes a prediction and you only have copies of that text from after the thing was supposed to happen, that it's likely that, it was just a post-diction, right?
I think it's something you want to keep on the table in my opinion, right? And say, well, it definitely wasn't predicted because that.
Yeah, I didn't say it definitely wasn't right. I just said, the likely answer is that it was not a prediction.
Who's typing that? Is it you, Joe?
I'm not typing. Oh, I'm sorry. I got my car key.
Oh.
I have my car keys in my hand, James. I'm sorry.
The thing is, though, you've got a whole lot of evidence, like a whole bunch of counter evidence pointing the other direction when it comes to David, right? You've got, obviously, church fathers are going to name at least the synoptics prior to the martyrdom of Peter and Paul. That happened around 64. You've got like the manuscript evidence I mentioned. I think we've got some evidence in some of the indisputably authentic letters of the Apostle Paul that he definitely knows the Gospels of Matthew and Luke and is dependent on them in places. So, I mean,
yeah, I think you're missing my point, Dave. Right? It wasn't that there can't be any evidence that it was an actual prediction, right? My whole point is just that you would accept that, in other contexts, right? So that when you say people have a bias, right, against it being a prediction, right? All I'm saying is that you have that exact same bias for everything other than some Christian texts.
Sure, but I should be able to curb it, right? I should be able to say, okay, am I just assuming that this prediction, particularly if it's presented as a prediction in the text, I should be able to say, okay, I don't want to just assume that this wasn't actually predicted, so let me put that aside and see if I can find other reasons for thinking it was.
Yeah, but then in that case, you're still going off of the default, right? That it isn't a prediction. That and then looking for evidence to bring that back into play.
I don't want to call that the default, though. I just want to call that as kind of like the gut reaction to it.
How different from a default? If that's the thing that you just think is the answer, barring anything else added, right? That sounds like a default to me.
By default, I tend to mean that this is something that you rationally should believe in the absence of sort of evidence to the contrary.
Oh shit, I just said a whole bunch of shit without muted. Anyway, my point is that people make predictions all the time, almost always completely wrong, right? And so because of that, if you see a prediction in text, you should probably think that it wasn't an actual prediction until you get more evidence, to make it able to conclude.
I don't see how that follows.
I think you can do it either way. I think the way Dave's saying it is okay as well. If you can gather enough evidence to actually support the fact that it was a real prediction, don't like what's going on here is maybe them appealing to the church fathers. That's, as an outsider, I wouldn't trust that because I would just think, well, of course they would. They want to say this is a real prediction and give it an early dating, and so, you know, you know.
But their early dating, Chris, doesn't really seem to be motivated by like the accuracy of the temporal prediction. In fact, like I could be wrong on this. Maybe Converse could correct me because he might know this better. But I'm not actually aware of like any of the early church fathers using this as like an argument that like, oh look, because like clearly the prediction happened this early because the Gospels are written that early, therefore, that's a good reason to think that Jesus is the Son of God because look, he did the prediction accurately. So I don't know, but just when they give us their dating of the Gospels, it doesn't seem to have any like concern for that particular issue. I mean, I guess you could say that's doing work in the background for them, but it's certainly not clear in their texts.
Okay, in what context? In what context did they give us their dating? Like, what were they saying when they gave the dating? How did they word it?
Sure, they're actually like it's pretty like roundabout. So in the case of Papias, he tells us that Mark wrote his gospel like for Peter. So he doesn't really tell us that much. Other than that, he would have to be in the lifetime of Peter. He tells us that Matthew wrote his gospel when he was going to leave Jerusalem, and doesn't really tell us when that was. Now I think we can track it down that happened in 42 AD, but that information is not being supplied by Papias himself. Irenaeus says that the Gospel of Matthew is written while the Church at Rome is being founded. Again, he doesn't give us a date. If we track that down, though, I think we can show that the Church at Rome is founded in 42 AD. So again, that's doing a lot of work, and why I date the Gospel of Matthew specifically to 42 AD is because they both kind of give us these independent time markers that converge on that date. So here's an interesting point. Irenaeus says that he doesn't tell us when Mark is written exactly. He says it's handed on after Peter and Paul's departure, which would seem to be a reference to their death. Again, that happened 64 AD. Clement clearly says it's written while Peter is still alive. So, you seem to have an apparent tension, at least between the two of them on that point. So it's like they're giving us very precise dates. It's just like we seem to be getting this idea that Mark's gospel is written either while Peter is still alive or pretty soon after he's dead.
Oh, I see. So they weren't like stamping dates and saying, oh, this is 43 AD. They were just saying, these were the circumstances around which was written, and from there you can map the dates.
It should be mentioned that these things are not truly referring to, so at least Papias is not referring to the Gospel of Matthew that we have. So he's talking about the logia of Jesus written in Hebrew. So that sounds more like some sort of Q source or something like that. It's not referring to this Gospel of Matthew that we have.
I would disagree with that for two reasons. First being that the way Papias uses the term logia, he seems to use that as a synonym for gospel. Incidentally, so do Irenaeus and Origen in some of their writings. But in particular, when Papias refers to the Gospel of Mark, he says that Mark collected the Lord's logia, and then he also says that this includes both the things that the Lord said and did. So he does not seem to use the term as a synonym for logia. Additionally, Papias' own works are titled An Exposition of the Oracles, i.e. Logia of the Lord, and we can just confirm that Papias is not exclusively talking about the sayings of the Lord in his 5 books, so I don't think that Papias uses the term Logia to exclusively refer to sayings. And then regarding this bit about Matthew being written in Hebrew, Papias uses the term dialecto. That's kind of a vague term. It would translate like literally to something like dialect. It could mean Hebrew language. It could also mean something like a Hebrew style that would actually be reflected in our contemporary Gospel of Matthew because it has the most distinctively Jewish outlook in concerns of any of the Gospels. Additionally, I think that this is supported by the context of Papias. He's contrasting the literary style with Matthew and Mark respectively. And so I think that favors the translation of Hebrew style there rather than Hebrew language. And the last point would just be that there's no definite article in Papias. He doesn't say the Hebrew language, though translators sometimes supply the word the, but that's not actually present in Greek. And whenever logia clearly refers to the Hebrew language, it basically always has the definite article. So those would be my responses.
Sometimes it's used like oracles, like the utterances or sayings. Sometimes it gets used like that in Latin.
Are you guys saying a Greek word is being used?
Yeah, Greek word.
You know what that means?
Also among the previous points there.
What?
So in those points, like among other things, like we don't have any confirmation about what sayings is Papias writing his exposition on. Like it's just a totally lost work. But also like among the previous points, it's not true that Papias and Irenaeus are two separate sources. So like Irenaeus is building off of like he's the next generation, so building off of previous and making claims about them. So I don't think that counts as an independent source.
So that's not true. We do have quotations of Papias commenting on the Gospel of Luke, for example, and the writings of Andrew of Caesarea. So he does give us confirmation he's quoting from that, at least in the case of the Gospel of Luke. With respect to, Irenaeus not being an independent source, what is the argument on Papias here?
Argument for what?
For claiming that Irenaeus is dependent on Papias. He certainly doesn't say that.
Who is he depending on?
I think he's depending on Polycarp.
Okay, and he says Papias and Polycarp were buddies, and then he asserts something that they don't assert, that he knew the apostles. Like this isn't some like one guy hears something and then on another place another guy says it's like, oh well, look how convenient that they say the same thing, that probably must be true. It's like literally two guys who knew each other and a disciple of one like making claims about what the two of them like did. Even though neither of them say that in any of their excellent works. It's like,
no, Papias does say that. At least I think he does. You're right, Polycarp doesn't, but only one of Polycarp's works is uncontroversially survived, so it's not particularly surprising.
Okay, so that just means we don't have any basis to, use them as a source that they knew the apostles. We just have Irenaeus' claims.
That is a basis. It's perhaps not the best possible basis, but that is a basis.
Sure, I mean, it's like Muslims with their isnads, like, oh, this guy claimed that this guy said, okay.
What's the issue? Are you saying that Eusebius isn't a different source than Papias?
Eusebius very much disagrees with the claims of Irenaeus about whether Papias knew the apostles.
I didn't ask you about that.
Well, source for what? Yeah, he's a source for disagreeing with Irenaeus' claims.
Which part does he disagree with?
That Papias knew the apostles.
Okay. Where does Irenaeus say that Papias didn't know the apostles?
No, I'm saying Eusebius is a source against that claim of Irenaeus.
Oh, which part says that Papias didn't know the apostles?
When he says that Irenaeus made a mistake and is mixing up John the Elder with John the Apostle. I don't get these questions. Like, you know this already.
No, I don't. Richard Bachman is like the main proponent is he doesn't think they're mixing it up. So like, what specifically is contradictory between the two books.
I'm not getting what you're saying.
He doesn't say the phrase you just said, right? So, like, what part is he mixing up?
Who doesn't say what I'm saying?
Oh my god, really? He doesn't say that Papias got Rome, John the Apostle took him over. You see this?
Who?
You see this?
Yeah,
Like,
he says,
why do I have to do this for you?
says
You know exactly who
Irenaeus is wrong.
I'm retard.
It's fine. Go be a funny smooth brain.
Yes, I need to move in any church fellows. You can't even track what you were talking about.
You're just babbling nonsense. That's why it's untrackable.
So what was the earliest date in which any of these church fathers were writing about their
Papias.
Papias. What date?
Papias. The proposed dates are between 95 and 140 for like a median estimate of like 120.
Okay, alright.
And by the way, that's the work. That's not extant. The expositions of the sayings.
Right, but we have a lot of quotations.
Who made Deepak mod, seeing as he just, like, DM me that he thinks everyone in this room's a fucking idiot, and he didn't want to be friends with anyone here?
Wow, Deepak must be disappointed to hear that.
That's a lie. That's a lie. I said everyone's a fucking bitch.
Yeah, fuck. Dyslexia, sorry.
Well, do you disagree, Miller?
What, that Deepak's a fuck bitch? No, I don't disagree with that.
Hacking error on the next part.
He's on the blunderbuss right now.
All the way.
One passenger.
You guys, have you guys seen like the latest episode in the Fatima saga?
No. I haven't. I saw a show I'm following. Like,
What? It's the greatest show in town. What are you talking about?
well, okay, disagree. What's going on? What's the latest?
So the man himself, Scott Anderson, right? Like he took a trip all the way to Bosnia, right, to settle the case once and for all. It's like a fascinating story. Like so, TLDR. Actually, I don't want to spoil. Are you guys? I'll share the link, the story. But it's actually there's a bit of a what's the word for like a thing that like a spoil, not a spoil. What's the thing? You know, like a twist. There's a twist in the middle.
Plot twist?
The plot twist, yeah. So that's what there's a plot twist in the middle. He's a good writer, so it's just enjoyable to read, right? Even if like the Fatima thing, you know, is not really your jam. Like he writes well.
What is the benefit of doing that? Is there like local sources that you can only get there, or?
Well, it's to explore a particular kind. Like so after Fatima, apparently in 1981, in this one hillside in Bosnia, like there was a repeat occurrence. Like there were 6 teenagers who claimed that they had a vision from the Virgin Mary that was like eerily similar, right? It involved like the sun doing funky stuff. And ever since then, pilgrims have reported having like similar things happen in this town called, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like something like Medjugorje or something like that.
So he's interviewing people?
No, he's going there to the source to see if he can like encounter American stuff. Well, that's part. I mean, both. Exactly both. You read the story. There's a really interesting twist there in the middle. But it has a happy ending.
Is he a theist now?
What is the plot twist and what is the happy ending?
What do you mean Fatima in Bosnia is like a Muslim miracle?
No. Bosnia. I mean, I know Bosnia is like predominantly
Muslim.
It's super Muslim, I know, but it's also like.
And Fatima is a Muslim woman's name.
No. Wait. You know what the Fatima thing is, right?
What is it?
Yeah, there's a town of Fatima in Portugal.
No, you don't know what we're talking about? Yeah, that's right. Okay, yes. So the Bosnia thing is like a follow-up miracle, separate incidents, like in the
Are you
beginning.
sure it's Bosnia, not Croatia, like the Medjugorje?
Yeah, Medjugorje. But I think it's Bosnia. He kept mentioning Bosnia. So
Check out the article.
Let me Google it.
So it's close to Croatia. I think, in fact, he lands in Dubrovnik and drives to.
Oh yeah, I just Googled it. Okay, it is in Bosnia. Damn, like I've heard Medjugorje a gazillion of times. Like Catholics here, like really are into that. I just always assumed it's in Croatia because like all the Catholics are Croats. So
Yeah, get right. No, you're right. It's pretty close. Yeah.
Very good.
There's actually like a tiny little section of. How does it work? There's like a tiny section of Bosnia that you can't. Like, there's a section of Croatia that like you can't drive through. So there's a section of Bosnia.
Let me Google that for you.
Up to the coast. And
Does anybody know?
Right.
yeah, and it's like the Bosnia has an exit to the sea that's like tiny.
Yeah, it's really small.
Yeah, I was actually there last year. We were in Dubrovnik and we drove the split.
They let you in?
They did. I know.
Wow.
Mistake number one.
I'm shocked.
I told them I was there for the miracle, so they believed me.
Well, you should have just said that you're going there for like, to work. They would have believed you then too.
Started in a restaurant, maybe. That's a pretty place. But I didn't know about this miracle thing. Maybe I would have like convinced the wife, that we should drive over and check this miracle thing out.
When we were in Mexico City, we saw Our Lady of, what is it, Guadalupe?
Guadalajara?
Not Guadalajara. I think I'm saying it right.
Guadalupe.
Yeah.
Try to think about it before you talk about it.
Still atheist, but it was kind of cool to see it.
No visions, no mystical experience.
No religious experience. I mean, I didn't take drugs. Obviously, that's what you're supposed to do. I didn't do that, so maybe that was my mistake. But no religious experience. The Mexicans have a really tacky. I'm not saying that in a mean way. It's almost like charming and fun, tacky version of Christianity. It's very colourful and exciting, and lots of statues and things. I like it.
But it is very tacky.
Oh, gotcha. Guadalupe. Okay.
Yeah, if I can get it right.
Guadalupe to Guadalupe. No.
Even up to Key, perhaps you might have a religious experience.
Good point. Especially with the worm in it.
They're all spiritually dead.
That's fair.
Spiritually discerned.
They're all spiritually dead.
I think we are all spiritually dead. We were all like, what's the big deal? Someone painted this. Okay. It's a bit of a fish.
It was really tacky.
Were you in Mexico?
Maybe a year or so ago. I don't remember.
Okay. I was gonna make a joke about Day of the Spiritually Dead, but is there?
She was right about the time when they were trying to convert the locals to Christianity. So.
Locals, this will bring you up
The
They smooth brain. They all have this smooth brains.
So I was trying to make some money off of this, selling my soul business.
Uh-huh.
And it's not really going. It's not going so well.
Really?
The buyers?
No, there's nowhere to sell it. There's no.
You're here right now selling it.
Because size 8.5 soul. You get two of them, right? My soul will fit any foot. Don't worry.
Your soul isn't really valuable if you don't have spiritual discernment. At least,
But that's the thing. So maybe I can sell my soul to somebody that does have the spiritual discernment, so they can have benefit from it.
Money.
What if somebody that sells you can have some benefit?
This faggot's gonna sell the universe to you, but nobody wants to buy his bullshit.
I legally signed it over.
selling your cards instead.
No, you said you gotta be a believer and then you sell your soul so you've lost your place in heaven.
Nobody wants your soul, bro.
Yeah, what do you think?
It's like a backup for you. What are you talking about? Just in case yours goes south, you got another one in your back pocket?
No, it doesn't work. It's like
be mine.
it is.
Dude, you got like a soul that has the Andromeda strain on.
You can adopt it just like a child. Come on.
You're doing it wrong. If you really want to maximize your value, you've got to create a sole proprietor.
Oh my.
How much value do you need?
Nice.
What did he say? Value?
He did. He said value. He said virgin earlier. You're evolving on your ego skills here.
Yeah, that's what's his name from Discord. I mean, what? Loaded?
English is Canada.
Can you say vicissitudes?
Yeah, like who has the and the word? Like, why do you have two of them?
Those are completely different sounds, Chief.
Letter Hebrew?
Who does that? Just have the. Just put the everywhere. Who's the everywhere?
German?
I was thinking German as well. Many Europeans do value as well. So you're in good company.
English, Hebrew, German, Latin, I believe.
In grad school, I'd go to the gym, whatever, right, and ask for a volleyball because I wanted to play volleyball, and they'd give me this ugly blue thing. Because apparently there is a game called volleyball.
Oh no. See, this is why V is important. You get misunderstandings like that.
Just keep it language.
Get rid of
A what? Okay.
So the spelling is awful. Just orthographic.
You're right, the spelling is like really odd.
Best language in the world, bro. Use international.
Good things Zeleny and Converse for today, early history.
That they already had.
They're wasting time, literally.
Convert you're like confusing popularity for like being best.
What popularity?
Short English language.
Word is used everywhere. Is it because it's best or like some accident of history and stuff?
Accident?
Yeah,
I don't believe in accident.
Now I can ask my question to Deepak. Huh?
Oh no. No. Alright, if you can do it in 2 minutes, go.
2 minutes. All right, Deepak, information theory. Random sequence, incompressible, and so on and so forth. Is it possible that every random sequence actually could be decoded into, or like unencrypted, or not unencrypted, uncompressed into some other pattern? Do you think that's a possible theory? Like if you do a neutron decay, so like you do a neutron decay, right? So like, or like excitation, it excites, takes 10 seconds, do it again, takes 20 seconds, do it again, takes 5 seconds. These random numbers, you think you can take a random pattern is thinking and come up with some other higher order information out of it that got compressed down into that?
Okay.
What happened? Really good fun.
best midpoint. So we get a perfect compression algorithm. It looks like random. So if I think of a random sequence, and I think of the left compression algorithm, your wave B and wave two will compress it back into some information. What's the fixed random sequence? Can I come up with what's the sorry that answer the question? Like, can you just repeat the last one? So if I imagine, like, so let's imagine like how shape the waves are looking at heads, tails, tails, heads, tails. And everyone would agree that situations have divisions, heads, tails, and therefore that's just the point. It's just the way through everything is different. But it's effectively a string of bits, ones and zeros, that's incompressible because random. That weights by the velocity of a weird way that is your weight B on your compression algorithm that turns it back into information using word decompression. Like I was going to say, how decompression is there? Sure, decompression is a lot of expressions that I have. I should say decompression. Yeah, I wasn't know what we mean by turning it back into information. Right? So if I take English information, so if I take English and compress it, it's like in the ideal compression, it looks like a random sequence. And I take that.
You need hope to come with the same word in?
It turns back into language that we can understand. So in that sense, like, is there a possibly a decompression algorithm that would apply to a random sequence? And go, oh, if we apply it to this point, we get out this human being. Like you could just build like a giant like lookup table, right? That maps every random sequence to like a sentence in English. No, not like that. No, right? It's not saying like that. We use our algorithm because that one would just be a finite list, right? Generally speaking, most like compression algorithms are going to come with a non-compression algorithm, right? That tells you what the rest is. Well, yes, but like, okay, so, and I think, yes, if you're talking about purely whether there's comparable functions into that, yes, I think it's, I think if there is a compression algorithm, then there's an uncompression algorithm. Now, one thing is that the uncompression algorithm might not be as easy to compute as the compression algorithm, right? There are, like, special, like, I don't know what you know about, like, things like common, like, there's there's like certain classes of functions that are like they call one-way functions, right? They're very easy to compute in one direction, but very, very hard computation in the other direction that you take. But it's the next one in that, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's the way like that. Yeah. So some compression algorithms might be like that. Yeah, compression, right? Imagine when I was starting with a random sequence, I was saying, I didn't know how this got compressed.
Here we go, here we go, here we go. They do not stop. They just keep going. They just keep talking non-stop. They just talk. They want to talk. So they keep talking. Never stop. Won't stop. Can't stop.
Before, but I've heard people say the less people.
Wait, it's gonna. Okay. One second. I soak them in olive oil and butter and seasoning and lemon juice, and then I cut them into quarters and roast them in the toaster oven.
Hey, I'm that guy.
We were talking about you, Gus.
I can tell, yeah, so mom me up. Quit playing. Yeah, Beth DM'd me. She said you guys were talking about me. What the heck?
We ran out of things to talk about. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, Beth said you guys were talking shit.
Oh, I did not, you weirdo. We're talking about Brussels sprouts.
No, you DM me, Beth. I got the message. It's okay.
got the message. I'm here now. It's alright.
That's amazing. We were talking about Brussels sprouts at Divisive Mix. And I don't know how to make Brussels sprouts, so I was listening to his recipe.
Actually, Gus, this Brussels sprouts is our code name for you.
Yeah, I knew that. That's what I was just about to say. That you guys are speaking in code now. I get it.
What's in your eyes, Augustus?
Censor bar. Because I'm always being censored. Because I got the forbidden information. The forbidden knowledge.
Are you going hunting? You got a hunting cap on.
Well, it is hunting season.
What are you hunting?
I find
I'm
retards.
for
I find retards.
Oh, poor little things. They're just nuggets to eat.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
What's new with Tronic?
Wasting his time.
He's good. I think that he's just disappointed with the community. As am I. Well, that's why I'm here bothering you.
You guys got a pretty strong community going. I thought you still did.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank